Hi, everyone, and welcome to the Cyber Pulse podcast. Today's episode is about info stealers. Today, we're talking about info stealers, a threat that doesn't get the attention it deserves, even though it sits behind many real world scenarios or incidents. Info stealers don't rely on loud attacks or visible damage. They work quietly, often through normal user activity, and their goal is very simple. Their goal is to collect credentials and access. Once that access is taken, everything else becomes much more easier. So in this episode, we're breaking down how info stealers operate, why credentials hold so much value, and how a single compromise can slowly turn into a much larger unwanted problem. So welcome everyone. Thank you for doing this. I truly appreciate your time. Gentlemen, can you please do me the honors of introducing yourself to the audience before we dive into it?
So my name is Taim. I am a computer science student, fourth year in Qatar University. I have with my colleague Hadi, we have started many startups now in progress, including Shifai.
Nice, interesting. I want you to tell me more about that sometime when you're free so that I can actually help you guys in things if you don't mind.
My name is Hadi Sulaiman. Like Taim introduced me, and Taim work on a lot of AI solutions, cybersecurity solutions, and do a lot of research. And we find this podcast as a good opportunity to actually explore and connect with people through Sheikh, of course.
Thank you. It's always a pleasure. Adnan, please do me the honors.
My name is Adnan Abbas. I'm IT security manager in Unisys, Australia. I've been working in cybersecurity for the last 18 years. And thank you to Sheikh for introducing me to this beautiful community and giving me an opportunity to share this time with you on the podcast. Really appreciate it. Thank you.
No worries. Actually, it's an honor for me to have you all on board. So let's dive into today's topic. Today's episode is about info stealers and the value of credentials. So Adnan, when you hear the term info stealer, how do you usually describe it?
Yeah, it's a very interesting terminology, information stealer. So I would rather give a real world analogy to it. Like think about it as a someone who's a thief and he just breaks into your house, and while you're sleeping, while you're in bed, you're working, you're not aware of what's happening, and they just dive into your room or some other belongings in your house, and they try to steal as much valuable items, jewelry, cash, cards, whatsoever they get their hands on, and they just run away. And it is without your knowledge because you're just working, you're just sleeping, you don't know what happened. And then one fine morning, you find your things missing. And that's where you get an alert of, oh, something happened, someone broke in. So information stealing is similar analogy which happens in the digital world as well, where somebody, hacker, who is just looking for some key information, and they try to be working as in a stealth operator mode. They don't want to they don't want to be noticed. They just, hide their tracks, they get in, they try to steal as much information as possible, and then try to take advantage later. So that's more of what I think of information stealer, yeah.
Interesting perspective. I like the fact that you described them as thieves. This is a nice elaboration of putting it. Tim, how do info stealers typically end up on a system?
So most from what I've seen, they end up through pirated software. They install themselves mostly on Windows computers on the app data folder, and they try to steal cookies from Firefox, from Chrome, from many other sources, session keys, everything. And they basically end up mostly from pirated software.
Why do you think people download software without actually legitimizing the fact that this is the correct source?
So I have a hot take on this. I think most software should not be pirated, but some companies deserve for their software to be pirated, just like Adobe. Most of the time, I'm against it, but I have some exceptions, especially Adobe. But the rest, I always do legitimate stuff. But mostly, it's because it's very expensive. Paying $60 for Adobe software per month is very very expensive. For example, I am a photographer and a videographer, so if I make money, especially here in Qatar, it doesn't pay too much. Paying that amount for Adobe software does not make sense.
Okay, Adnan, I think you want to share something. Go ahead.
I just wanted to share one incident in a company where there was a senior developer, and her laptop just got some sort of user impersonation happened, and then she witnessed some sort of activities which were happening, and she had access to a remote terminal server.
Okay.
So that was like I'm sharing this because it looks much more closer to what we're discussing now. Like, because the people who got in somehow to her laptop, they were just trying to get the data from the screen and just noticing her behavior, and then all of a sudden she looked at some mouse movements, some activities which were very weird. And the fun part was that most of the softwares, and like Taim mentioned, that because it happens for pirated software downloaded from dodgy websites, a couple of softwares which I have witnessed are like Putty, which the system admins and network admins use, not valid software or not like licensed softwares, Notepad++, a couple of other softwares as well, which I don't want to say here, but I think we need to have a proper application whitelisting in the organizations and allow list and the blacklist as well of what is allowed and what is not allowed, and the user education part as well.
Interesting perspective. I love the fact that you mentioned whitelisting, especially when it comes to entity. Hadi, I have a question for you. Do you think this type of compromises or infostealer compromises happen to entities more or happen to regular users? Who do you think the target victim is?
I think it happens more to regular users because they're more likely to use a lot of tricky or pirated software, I would say, because, a company would pay for legitimate software and they don't mind paying for that because they make special discounts for companies. But when it comes to users, especially like, let's say, gamers, students in this category, these people are not willing to pay a lot of money for a monthly subscription. They would rather take the risk of downloading some pirated software or what they call cracked game or cracked software like Adobe and a lot of other examples for the fact that it's free and it could literally have malware in it that could steal your information, steal your session ID on your browser, a lot of things. And I even did some research on such applications like a pirated software where the person, like, he can simply just use it and his info gets stolen, his location, the contacts, session IDs, cookies. And with his consent, by the way, he just agreed to use the software, not knowing who edited, nothing. So
True.
it's definitely the regular users.
Okay, Adnan, let me ask you this. In your own particular understanding, how do info stealers typically end up on a system?
I think the most common pattern we have seen most recently is because if you browse to the dark web, and there's a lot of information. If you are a dedicated hacker, or even if you're a script kiddie, it's very easy to get the credentials, to get the initial information. And in these days, like a decade ago, 2 decades ago, firewalls used to be a big thing, but not anymore. In today's world, identity is the key information, and identity is the single frontier. So if you compromise identity, it could be through VPN, through an RDP, through basic authentication. For instance, if some organizations have not implemented multi-factor authentication, the use case is very easy, to be honest. Like if you get your hands onto compromised credentials on dark web and try your luck, I think within a couple of, I would say, 10 to 100 attempts, you would eventually be able to access the first point of entry, which is user authentication, basic username and password. That's the initial attack vector. And once they're in, the most common method is, like I said, they try to hide the tracks. They want to be very quiet. So they do lateral movement within the environment. They try to impersonate the user. They try to look after the activities. They try to understand the user's access behavior and access permissions within the environment. And they also try to do privilege escalation if they can. And once they're in, like I said, it's more of a domino effect.
Let me ask you this. Why do you think such attacks are effective in terms of credentials? Like, how effective are they when a compromise actually takes place? What damages can it do to an entity in your perspective?
If I have to describe it in a risk terminology, I think the impact is quite high or critical. The probability is where some of the people, even within the risk forums and even in board conversations, we usually get locked on into this situation where the stakeholders are not convinced on the probability because of the technology and the products and systems we use to protect, prevent, and detect what's happening in our digital world. But I usually put the story as like, what if it happened? what's the impact. So we need to realize the potential impact and the risk valuation of, even if the probability is unlikely or the likely, we have to face the consequences. And the consequences range from, the first is information stealing, which is your data leakage or your data exposure. And that could be your customer data, your health data. Employee information is not really, catered as very critical, but still there's a reputational damage to it. And for God, I don't know if some organizations have not really been diligent enough and the information is unencrypted or their backups are unencrypted.
Yeah.
Or the network is not segmented, then the ransomware is the most common, where the hackers usually ask for ransom. They take copies of your data and they encrypt, they do ransomware, and then you don't have access to your information, you don't have access to your systems, and then you're in a locked situation where you can't, even do something because they have access, they have created their own user admins within the environment, which you have not, which you were not able to trace or monitor what's happening within your environment, and then they have complete control of your environment. Whatever you do, they are watching, they are listening to what you're doing. They have complete access to the networks, they have complete access to your applications, your Active Directory. So in that situation, which most of us have heard about in the last 2 years, I would say, the CERS and the national bodies, the national cybersecurity agencies get involved, and eventually I think 10%, 20% of the organizations end up in paying the ransom because there is no other way. The last statement I have in my risk forum is that, are you willing to invest in protecting your organization, or are you willing to pay the ransomware? Which one is lower cost? What is the ROI? So I think that's the starting.
That's a nice way of painting it, because something as small as an info stealer could lead to all that, believe it or not. So I resonate when it comes to your answer, Adnan, because such things are always underestimated. But if the more specific they get, the more damaging they can cause. Kim, I have a question for you. From your perspective, why are stolen credentials so valuable?
It depends on the attacking entity. It's very relative, but for most people who use info stealers, they are small-time hackers. They are not big companies or big organizations. Most of the time, they try to steal some valuable things. For example, Steam libraries with hundreds of games. They are worth a lot of money. Discord accounts that manage big servers. Sometimes bank accounts, even though it's hard to info steal bank accounts. But most of the time, it's a financial reason. Most of the attackers are not big organizations, so they don't target very high value targets. They only target the small ones with a small amount of money. So they try to sell, for example, stolen game libraries, stuff like that. Maybe sometimes they ransom for private info that is stored on the computer, but most of the time it's financial.
Interesting. So you think most attackers or most hackers nowadays are financially motivated in a way?
Yeah, that's for the small ones. The big ones are not financially motivated. Most of them are politically motivated. But for the small groups, they're financially motivated, yes.
Interesting perspective, Taim. I'll give you that much. Hadi, what kind of access do credentials provide once they're compromised?
I mean, if he accesses your device and he's able to, let's say, steal your phone number, your ID, your credit card, session, cookies, he can literally take over all of your social media, all of your accounts. He becomes unstoppable because he has every proof and every card or number whatsoever to prove that he is you. He can simply call let's say that your social media, all of your accounts is connected to your phone number, right? And this guy, the hacker, somehow through your device, he was able to get your ID because you saved it on some file for some reason as a PDF. He can contact your phone company, like Vodafone, any other company, for example. And since he has your ID, all they're going to ask is your ID number. And he can simply register or say he lost his SIM card whatsoever. And he can easily just go to them and be like, oh, this is my ID number. And he can get it. And then through this phone number he got from you, he can log into any account. And you can imagine what he can do when he logs into your email, to your social media, to your LinkedIn.
Do you think people make it that easy because of reused passwords?
I don't think it's more about the password that we're reusing. I feel like it's more about the data you keep on your device, because any data or file or information that you keep on your device is a vulnerability to the hacker to steal. Because if someone compromised your device and there is nothing to steal, you're safe. But if you trust your device that much to plug in your credit card, to save important documentation, your ID, your health card, your passport, it becomes a vulnerability that the hacker where as soon as he compromises your device, he can identify as you through the phone when he contacts your bank, anything, any entity he can contact. All they're going to ask is verify your phone number, verify your ID. And if you have these stored, you're done. Your life is literally gone, because there is no way that the bank is not going to believe him because he has all of the digits on your ID or any other card. So it's life destroying, actually. It says life destruction.
Interesting perspective. So you think that these things are like more demanding because of the type of data they provide, right? Because if all that data is easily provided, then the attack phase would depend on the attacker in terms of what he wants to do, in terms of gaining access to all that data.
Exactly. So I would like to follow this rule. The less your device knows about you, the less the hacker does too.
So Adnan, I have a question for you. Where do user habits expose systems most in the process?
I think it comes down to it's a twofold aspect. One is it depends on the environment and the environment variables and how much of user education or security education and awareness is happening. What I've seen and witnessed is most of the non-IT staff, which is admin or finance, accounts, HR, or some other colleagues within the organizations, they rarely focus on the real objective of the security education and awareness. So most common habits like reusing the passwords unless you have controls to prevent it. Like you have defined the IT policies or you have defined the policies within your systems and your products which prevent it from happening, they would use it. I've seen a couple of use cases where the users have been using their personal email accounts like Gmail and a couple of other on their official laptops, which brings on multifold of problems for your environment, especially if they are browsing and downloading the data as well, and they are downloading other attachments as well on the work laptop using a work browser, which somehow gives permissions to them to access their personal accounts. So I think we need to somehow educate. Education is the first piece, I would say, because we can't blame the users. I'm sorry for using this term, but we need to educate them. We need to help them out first in understanding why is it important, why we are talking about user IDs, why we are talking about passwords, not the user password, or don't have the same passwords for multiple accounts. Like I've seen a couple of users who have got one password for multiple accounts. Like for instance, one admin privilege user has got access to prod and dev and SIT and other environments, and he's using just one password, which is not a security best practice. But again, how would you identify and remediate that, or how would you educate them not to do this? So it's twofold. Responsibility lies on us as well as cybersecurity professionals to educate them, to help them understand why is it important and what harm or what risk it carries if something bad happens. And it's because of them, or for instance, if like Hadi mentioned, if the user impersonation happens or their user credentials gets compromised, then the list is long on what can happen or what may happen.
Interesting perspective, but we go back to the main point, which is the fact that awareness is key. So thank you for mentioning that. This plays a very important role. So Taim, I have a question for you. What's the main impact of info stealers? Like, what do you think the main impact of them to society nowadays?
I think most of them impact the society by, for example, reducing the trust in software, especially pirated software. And other than that, they bring fear to using computers. Most of the older generation are scared to do online banking and stuff like that just because of what the stories they heard about info stealers and whatever, people getting their bank accounts hacked or their whatever Steam libraries or anything getting stolen. So they do bring a lot of fear, but I think they can be mitigated pretty easily with just some common sense.
Interesting perspective. Why do you think they bring in fear? Is it a gap in terms of user awareness when it comes to age?
I think it's more about, how would I say it? So user awareness in the older generation is very low. They don't know what is the true software and what is the pirated one, or even if it's not pirated one, it could have spyware or whatever, and that could have info stealers. I think the age is a very big thing in terms of awareness. But there is another thing, which is the younger generation, which are used to mobile phones and iPads and stuff like that. They also have, they're very lacking in social in awareness in terms of that, because they have almost never used a laptop or a computer until they are at a big age, for example, in university or high school. So our generation, I think, is the most aware. The generation that is older than us is not very aware, and the younger ones are not very aware. So I think, yeah, it's a matter of age.
Interesting perspective. Hadi, what change could best reduce credential attacks?
To give our devices less information about us, because there's no way to actually prevent a cyber attack or a hacker to get into our system and steal our information. The best way is to not give critical information to your device, because there's no reason to actually store your list of passwords or documentation. And no matter how much we try to share awareness and, tell people don't download this, don't do that, it's the internet. You never know what gets on your device. Hackers are really getting advanced with mocking some websites it's insane. And you can never be truly safe. Companies should start developing a way to actually just have those critical files that they take from the users just for a short amount of time. They don't need to have it all the time or store it. I think the biggest problem is actually storing information. Maybe you can have them running in the RAM for a bit to use them. Other than that, there's actually no logical reason to actually store your ID. And, it's like you just made it so easy for the hacker. He doesn't have to investigate your life. He just have to hack your laptop and he has everything. He literally can even get your passport to travel with through that. I know a person, her dad sent her passport as a PDF.
Okay.
And her email got hacked. And the hacker got access to her email in the highest quality he could ever get.
Imagine the problems that occur after, I understand. Because one small thing like that could lead to life-changing things. Now, before we wrap up, I have one last question to all of you. Is there anyone you would like to see join the Cyber Pulse in a future episode?
Yes, for sure. I would love to recommend one of my best friends, Muhammad Nasser Dosari. He's pretty good in the field, and I would love to have him join the podcast.
Let's see, maybe we can get him join one of the podcasts. I made you join. Hadi requested that in the past, so I'm getting good at this. Hadi, any recommendations?
The three of us, me, Taim, and his friend, on the podcast next time.
Let's see what I can do. What about you, Adnan?
100%, yeah. This is my first time on podcast, so I would recommend it to my network here in Australia, and I would suggest a couple of colleagues within the industry. Yeah.
That's good. Thank you, gentlemen, for joining. So this was an interesting conversation, and I believe it highlighted important aspects when it comes to cybersecurity. So this was an interesting conversation. I think it highlights important aspects when it comes to cybersecurity. Many serious incidents don't start with complex exploits. They start with access that looks legitimate. Info stealers make that possible by turning everyday behavior into long-term risk. Understanding how credentials are stolen and reused is critical, because once access is lost, everything else becomes harder to protect. Thank you for listening to the Cyber Pulse. Hopefully, I'll see you in the next episode.